Welcome to Unmasking Social, where we talk about building real friendships and meaningful connections without masking who we truly are. I'm your host, Sharon, a speech and language pathologist with an expertise in social thinking and how it relates to autism and ADHD, specifically with our teens and tweens. Let's dive in. On today's episode, we explore yet again our higher education students who are all the way in Perth, Australia, in a program that has a specialty for motivating and supporting our neurodivergent young adults that are in the college environment. At Kiara College, all the way in Perth, Australia, students are able to come into the specialized program but be part of the neurotypical university, the true model of inclusion. Maureen Nguyen takes us through that journey, allowing us to see how strengths and interests are really capitalized on as these students achieve their academic and social goals, but also using a trauma-informed lens to support the family members, the students, and the parents. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Unmasking Social. Today, we have a guest from the other side of the world. I believe, Maureen, that is the northernmost part of Australia?
Southwest, actually. I think we're quite isolated from the rest of Australia, which makes us very unique and very special. Yeah, southwest coast.
Okay, so of course I got that wrong with my New York City geography, but I'm so eager to welcome Maureen Nguyen, who is not only a special educator and has been involved in special education for countless years, but has also dedicated her time to trauma-informed care, as well as really being knowledgeable in many capacities and many roles on the special education life in Australia. Of course, no city and no place is the same, but you do have a kind of a vast knowledge of that landscape, Maureen. So, Maureen, can you share with our listeners just a little bit about your background and how your journey started into special education and then merging with becoming really trauma-informed, which is so critical?
Yeah, so I'm originally trained as a mathematics teacher, and that will always be my passion. I'm very much a passionate maths person, as anyone will tell you. But I was early on in my career, I was very drawn to pastoral care, service learning, community service programs, and looking at the development of the whole child, you know, not just academic, but social, emotional, and their whole well-being. And so I did what most women do and started a family. And after having my third child, I moved into a specialised education role working across medical and mental health settings, mostly situated at a Perth Children's Hospital. And through that work, I really saw the powerful impact of tailored interventions. So working within a multidisciplinary healthcare team to provide that wraparound support and looking at how you can keep children connected to education and community despite the challenges that they were facing. And I guess everything's just kind of rolled into another, and I became increasingly aware of how social disadvantage and trauma and systematic barriers really do impact student engagement, well-being, and their access to learning. So that led me into studying a master's in trauma-informed education, which was awesome. So I somehow managed to complete that went back to study after 20 and it was just so interesting. And I really enjoyed being in that space and really having that neuro-inclusive lens over education. And then I did a bit of leadership work, did some leadership program, and then I was looking for new opportunities of how I could bring all this together. How could I bring my trauma-informed lens and look at inclusive education and use my developing leadership skills to really look at systematic change. So I came across this program, and it was starting a specialised learning program, especially for autistic students facing challenges at school. So I started this program at a little school called Kiara College. And I actually sought out to work at Kiara College because it's quite a small school. It's in a low socio-economic area, very culturally diverse, highest percentage of Aboriginal students in the mainstream area, lots of Maori and other cultures. So it's very culturally diverse, and lots of families facing those challenges of intergenerational trauma and systematic barriers. So I was very keen to start working at Kiara College and then open up this program as well.
Wow. So
Yeah.
from a math teacher all the way circling
I'll
into
always be
being
a
a
maths teacher.
mastermind of education. And then not only that, but taking it a step further and really leaning into those who are facing this intergenerational trauma and
Yeah.
trauma that could be due to the socioeconomic status. And I wanted to speak a little bit about the neurodivergent population, as that is a feature of the podcast. And I know you come across that population as well. And
Absolutely.
many of them are dealing with trauma just by the very part of them just going through life, especially in their
Yeah.
teen and tween years. Many times, as a speech and language pathologist myself, I've seen that certain behaviors that seem like they were a response to something that was happening in the moment were more of a trigger of something that occurred maybe earlier in their life or repeatedly was happening to them because of the constant masking and being forced to fit in when other people were othering them. And so just by that, they felt very traumatized, honestly. And so I'm curious for those listening that are neurodivergent and for those who support them, what have you seen in terms of recognizing trauma within that community? And what are some of the supports that you have seen that have really helped with that community?
Yeah, so part of studying trauma aware practice in education was very much looking at that, the presentations and how there's so much crossover between neurodivergence and students dealing with the impact of trauma. And then I read something this morning and it said it's really hard to differentiate between trauma and neurodivergence because most neurodivergent people have been traumatized by environments that have not supported them. So I guess it does best for all of the students if we apply those practices, the trauma-informed practices, along with inclusive education and looking at neurodivergence. It's sort of, there's such a big intersection there, and working at a school there is significant impact from trauma from students for all sorts of reasons. Definitely late diagnoses of neurodivergence, lack of access to supports, all of these sort of impact the way that they show up in the morning in the day with us. So yeah, our program is especially catered to meet the needs of autistic young people and autistic young people facing complex challenges more specifically. So it's quite a bespoke program. It only caters for a small percentage of students. So we only cater for 18 students within the mainstream population. We have a great team. I've got a great team of people. We work together to meet their needs and really tailor everything we do to ensure that those kids have the best opportunities available to them. So the best opportunities to access education, to work on their strengths, to be the people who they want to be without feeling that they have to, mask or tone themselves down or whatever it is. We get to know those kids really well and we apply lots of different strategies to help them. I guess we have a bit of a support model, and one of the things that we do that's been quite successful, even though the kids roll their eyes a bit sometimes, is just doing a morning check-in every morning with them and just asking those questions, have you had breakfast? Have you slept? Is there something that you'd like to talk about today before you're ready to learn? So we do that every morning with the kids, and I know sometimes they get a bit frustrated. They find it a bit repetitive, but also it gives them that opportunity to have a voice and speak. And so if there is a day then they just something happened at home and they couldn't sleep, or they didn't have food at home that day, so they needed some breakfast. So we encourage them to make themselves a toastie or something like that. I don't know if you know what a toastie is.
A toastie. Oh, for those listening who are not in Perth, Australia, a toastie is it a toast, a piece of bread that's
Yeah,
toasted?
bread in a toaster with cheese, melted cheese, and of course Vegemite is an agreement as well,
Okay,
part of
so
it.
this is something
Yeah.
new that I learned, and the listeners who are not in Australia may not know. This is an Australian cuisine, right?
Oh, it's a delicacy, yeah,
Yeah, it's a
definitely.
delicacy. So
Yeah.
but it's like a grilled cheese sandwich, almost like sweet.
Yes, you would call it like a grilled cheese, I guess, but the kids
Right.
the kids love it. We even have a community group coming in and making toasties for all the kids in the school on a Tuesday morning. So toasties are the go in Australia.
Wow. So it really does get those kids in motion who maybe are feeling dysregulated,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is fascinating because you touched upon the fact that many of these students need that check in. And, sometimes they
yeah,
may brush it off as like, oh, come on, you're checking in with
yeah.
me
They're like,
again. Right. But I think
yeah,
that's so great.
we literally chase them down. So they get so
No,
fed up
and
with us. But
but even that check-in, because I had someone on this podcast who focuses on sensory regulation, and
yeah,
one of the big things is that grounding piece in the beginning of the session.
yeah,
She's a fellow speech and language pathologist, and she said without that beginning grounding session of asking, "How are you doing? What is
yeah,
going on? Right? Did you eat breakfast?" You're missing. You could possibly miss a lot of information, and that is critical to what is going on with the child. So it sounds like a fantastic thing that you're doing at Kiara College, even though students may be rolling their eyes at times.
Well, we do keep data on it, and as much as they roll their eyes, I know they love that small act of care and knowing that someone it does care about them and is going to follow up, even if they run away from us and we're running after them with this iPad saying, "You haven't done your check-in." They love it, and we keep that data, and we sort of tie it up to if they do have some sort of episode during the day, we'll go back and say, "Hey, look, but this morning you said you didn't sleep last night because you're up all night gaming,
Mhm.
or you didn't have breakfast. And so do you think that there's a connection?" So really trying to encourage them to have that awareness of, are you ready to learn and what can we do to help you get there?
Yeah, I that's really great. And being that you're in this really niche college that is really focused and honed in on these autistic individuals, many who have trauma due to many different things going on, what have you seen that educators can get right if they look to Kiara College? That maybe educators are missing just because many of us may not have the training in this trauma informed care, or maybe sometimes it's just not as intuitive to some as it is to others. What is Kiara College doing that
Yeah.
others can really learn from?
So we are constantly reflecting on what we do and really getting the kids to help us. They co-design the program, and we have lots of conversations with them about what works and what can we do better as a team. We're a team here, you kids and us. We're going through this together, and it's a new program, so we're all learning in this space. But I guess the biggest thing that I've been working on with my team is just really going back to Dr. Bruce Perry, who I'm a big fan of his work, and looking at that regulate, relate, reason sequence. Um, and talking to my staff about what these kids deserve more than anything is a safe adult to co-regulate with. But for them to do that, we need to be aware within ourselves as well of, are we ready, as well as the kids being ready, are we ready to be there for those kids in the day? And what are some strategies we can use to be present and with them and model all the behaviours that we want to see from them, model our own regulation so that they can co-regulate and then eventually self-regulate as well. So we do that. We have, as I said, a bit of a model of support. So we look at case management very closely, developing that a bit, and having a teacher and EA work together with the student and their family and their therapy team to look at how we can really provide that individual education plan for them. So the IEPs are a big part of what we do, and we're still constantly evolving that as well. So having the case management, the documented planning, having the physical spaces for our students to come to and just feel safe in the day. So we have what we call a homeroom, where that's where the kids come in and check in with us in the morning. It's open during break times for not only the SLP students, but any student within the school to come and have a safe place for a bit of semi-structured socialisation. We always have a few activities in there for them to do. And then it's also open at any point during the day if the kids are finding that the classroom setting is a bit overwhelming for them, then they're welcome to come in and do their work in there, or sit an assessment in the homeroom, or just have a 10-minute break. Just come and have a sit in one of our chairs and play with a sensory toy or a fidget, just to help them reset before we set them off back out into the mainstream classrooms again.
Yeah, so you have the neuroaffirming practices to the max. You're
We're
really
trying, yeah.
making sure that all the individuals are regulated. And it's interesting because there is another college, the only other college that I know of, Landmark College, and I interviewed a professor from there here in Boston, actually not Boston, near Boston in Massachusetts, that also caters to the autistic population. And it's
Okay.
reminding me of that kind of setup. And they also are looking at that trauma informed lens, because naturally the neurodivergent population will obviously have exhibited trauma in their lives. But what's interesting about these kinds of schools is that the families can be involved as well. And I remember speaking to this individual about the parents. And one of the hard parts, it seems, about parents, and maybe in Kiara it's different, maybe based on the students who are coming there, is that sometimes it's hard to let go in college
Yeah.
because they're used to all of these accommodations. And at least here in the tri-state area of the USA, those accommodations kind of go to the wayside when they go to college, and they don't have as much support, especially if they're going away to college. So is there a way that you're able to set up something with the families, with the parents, to foster independence while still balancing support that isn't as common as it once was in high school?
Yeah, and I think you've really hit the nail on the head there, and that's why our program is so popular, the SLP program. And I think there's about 24 schools across the state, primary and secondary, that have an SLP program. And there's quite a waiting list to get in because you can really see that need for that extra transition support, especially moving from a primary school setting to a high school setting. And one of the things I think we do really well is communication with parents. And it's, again, just really simple things. We have a mobile phone and we use that mobile phone to text parents regularly. So if the kid is late to school, we text them like, hey, you know, so-and-so hasn't showed up. What's going on? Is there anything we can do to help? Or we not just, we also look at how we can have positive interactions. So we take a photo of the kids doing something, we send it to mum and say, look, our kids love cooking.
Yeah.
So we do some cooking, but we always like make the kids clean up as well. So I'll take a picture of the kid washing the dishes and send it home to mum, and just having that really positive communication and making it a regular, that this is the way we do things. And they love it. We have such a great interaction. And for the last 2 years in a row, we've run a family afternoon tea, and the families look forward to it. They really were keen to have this one, because they get to meet us as staff, but they also get to meet the other parents in the group, which doesn't usually happen in high school in Perth. The families don't always meet each other. So yeah, just having those great communication with the parents, also connecting with the students' therapists. So having that almost that circle of care around them. So us communicating with their teachers at school really well, and then communicating with the families and the therapists to really meet the kids' needs as best we can.
Yeah, that circle of care is so critical. And I think that it's so important that families have other families to speak to, that parents have
Yeah,
other parents to speak to, not just on this podcast, but having worked in a program for many years, a lot of parents had felt isolated, but then they would start speaking to other parents who had a neurodivergent child or a teen, tween, young adult, and suddenly they felt like a burden had been lifted. So it's almost as if, or maybe that is the motive, that you're creating also a support group for the parents,
yeah,
which if the parents don't have the support, then it's going to be hard to give the children the support. So
absolutely.
that's a very interesting way of approaching it. On top of that, these parents, when they're invited into this conversation, is it difficult to teach them about the trauma-informed lens? Are they usually receptive to it, or is it still kind of tricky?
Like everything we do for the students, we try to really lean into co-design. So having the parents come in and we talk to them about their IEPs or whatever documented plan or whatever strategy we're using to support the child, and also bring the young person into the room as well. So I'm trying to reflect back on whether I've actually used the word trauma-informed practice. I don't think I have. I use the word inclusion a lot more,
Okay.
just so that's all encompassing. So it's kind
Right.
of looking at trauma-informed lens as well as a neurodivergent lens. Yeah, but always really going back to regulation. I mean, what can we do to support you in supporting your child? So if it's something as simple as the mornings are really rushed and really crazy, so I don't have time to feed my kid breakfast, or provide breakfast, or that's okay. We got that covered. I got a loaf of bread in the fridge, got lots of cheese. We can get the toasties happening. So just looking at how we can really support the parents. And every now and then, if the kids haven't got a good night's sleep for whatever reason, well, we've got a beanbag there. Just jump in the beanbag, have a 15-minute snooze, and then get back out there and learn. So looking at how we can really provide whatever it is the child or the young person needs to be
Yeah.
ready to learn.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, inclusion is such a huge umbrella. Inclusion is
Yeah.
not just trauma-informed practices, but really just runs the whole gamut of making sure that
Yeah.
there are no exclusionary practices, that everybody can show up as themselves. And
Yeah.
it seems like what's being done in Kiara is great. Is this something that is also being done in other areas of Perth? Do you see a movement rising that's getting bigger and bigger just around neighboring parts of Australia?
Yeah. So as I said, the specialised learning program for autistic students, there's about 24 of them. I hope I got that number right. There's definitely, ours was the latest ones. Definitely, there's been an identified need for that support for students who are autistic and have facing a few challenges, to support them get back into mainstream education. I think there's also been a recognition of some of the statistics around neurodivergent young people, and what the future holds for them. I'm looking at long-term health, education, employment. Those stats aren't that great. So programs like this, they come into play from data, like it's data-informed practice we're looking at here. And there's been an identified need to look, how can we do this better as an education system? What can we do differently? And that's why I think even the West Australian Education Department here, they have some pretty up-to-date and evidence-based professional learning that's offered to staff on trauma-informed practice. As I said, a lot of it is based in Dr. Bruce Perry's work, and there's also new and evidence-based practice around caring for autistic young people as well.
Yeah, and so it is interesting that this is really moving around, and it seems like on some level you are at, I don't want to say the forefront because I know that you're not gonna maybe like that compliment, but you're at the forefront in the sense that Kiara, it seems to be one of the schools that has been around for a while, serving the autistic population, and can be a model for others as this moves across Australia. And one of the things I've always loved about Australia, other than the visit where, I had seen the kangaroo, is that when I was even in graduate school, the research that was being done in just the speech and language pathology field was just so fantastic. I remember using so much of that for so many of my research papers, and it just speaks volumes that this is where they are now. Because I mean, the research that was being done so many years ago, not to date myself, was just so high level and just so ahead of its time that it's no shock that right now they are really developing all these specialized programs that are so neuroaffirming. And so in your own community, in the community of Perth, one of the big things that comes up a lot is what's going to happen to some of the neurodivergent individuals, whether they have a lot of trauma or they have other co-occurring challenges that others look at as different and make it difficult for them to go on an interview and get a job. Like you said, you mentioned
Yeah.
employment, right? So in your community of Perth, and in Kiara College as a bridge to employment, are there opportunities for them to be included in different ways, in different types of work, or certain places have programs that can allow neurodivergent individuals to showcase their abilities, but not through like the standardized interview that is so challenging for the average neurodivergent individual?
That's a tricky one because I'm just starting to learn about that space a bit more. As I said, we're going into our second year of operation, and last year we did have 3 students who are moving from high school into the workplace. And so what we do is we worked in with their external service providers. So 6 students receive a funding package from the government, and part of that funding package can be used to look at workplace and training beyond high school. So it was really about, I guess, linking in with their NDIS providers and looking at how can they be supported once they leave school. So our role was really to try and get them there as best we could and get them finishing their courses and, graduating as happy young people ready to go out there into the workforce, and constantly communicating with their families. Is there any other way that we can support them? What else can we do? Maybe we can put you in touch with this organisation, because there are organisations that do support people with a disability to look at work placement and work ready skills. Yeah, but that's still an area I'm exploring. I'm still learning in that area.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. It seems like you are supporting the families in getting to that place already. So it sounds like the roadblocks are that may be in place can be lifted just by even supporting the families and making them aware of what opportunities their children have. And then the next step, I guess, would be maybe including programs that allow the individuals to showcase their abilities. It may be in different interview styles, or companies maybe that can partner. I don't know, I'm thinking that can see all the great contributions that neurodivergent individuals can
Yeah.
really contribute. And of course, I'm sure that's going to be just around the corner based on where things are landing now. And so in all of your experiences over the course of all the hats that you've worn and all the different roles that you've occupied in Australia, what do you find are the most challenging barriers in this higher education sphere that Kiara College prevents the students from having to deal with, right? The obstacles are removed. But what do you think is overall the biggest challenge there in terms of how neurodivergent individuals can thrive in college? And are there any changes that you would suggest? I mean, you've listed some of the great things you're doing at Kiara College, so
Yeah.
clearly that should be the model, but any changes you think need to be made because of these barriers?
I think we've come a long way, but there's definitely still a need to further develop understanding about neurodivergence and neuroaffirming practice, and just even the language that's used and that deficit-based perceptions, pathological language, looking at more of a social model than a medical model when we're talking about neurodivergence. And autism and ADHD and everything that comes under that umbrella. I guess just the perceptions. I think there's definitely been an increase in diagnosis, and looking at that as a good thing. It's a great thing. And how do we support people with their understanding? And I guess that's just by making it the norm. Think what we've done well is our program is not an isolated little program within the school. The doors are open. Everybody's welcome. And I think at the start, there was a little bit of hesitation about like, what is this program and who are these kids? I mean, oh, they're autistic. And to now it being, we have some days more mainstream students than SLP students in our rooms at lunchtime, because it's not seen as taboo or weird anymore. I think it's just the norm, and it's just a different program helping out students who need it. And I think that's great. I think we really need to look at how we can move away from a behaviourist, compliance-driven system to looking at how do we support our young people to be the best version of themselves. And so is that a change of environment? Is it providing a bit more wraparound support? Is it looking at being a bit more flexible with timetabling and the curriculum pacing? So looking at how we can remove some of those barriers and encourage access, engagement and participation in schools.
Yeah, I mean, that was so well said. I want to just quote you on that because that was really something that would be a great pitch to those who are still struggling with trying to
Yeah.
get that neuroaffirming design, get that inclusivity on board, because there's still a lot of places in the world, unfortunately, which I will be highlighting this year on my podcast, that are just scratching the surface of neurodivergence, and there are people that are speaking up for it. And what I love about the setup at Kiara is what you just explained to me just speaks to the actual meaning of inclusivity, which is
Yeah.
that there are doors that are opened. So you have the individuals in this autistic setting, but the doors are opened and there are mainstream individuals, right, that are
Yeah.
walking around
Yeah.
and everybody can hang out with each other. So it's not like you're
Yeah.
isolating them
No.
in one setting, in one school where only autistic people are allowed or only non-autistic people are allowed. They're there together. And
Yeah.
do you find that through this, which is the very definition of inclusion, where they're there together, do you find that there are actual friendships that develop out
A
of this with the
absolutely.
neurodivergent and non-neurodivergent and neurotypical individuals?
Absolutely. It's really gorgeous to watch, actually, and it's not just neurodivergent and non-neurodivergent, it's like across year groups as well, and so it's really sweet. And they will come in, and even if it's just a simple game of Uno, even if it's making lunch together. So, we set up a few semi-structured lunchtime activities. One of them, the kids wanted to make sushi. So we're like, cool, let's do it. So all sorts of kids came in the room because they all wanted to feed. And
Right.
so just giving them opportunities to engage in social interaction with just a little bit of a structure. And then we're saying, off you go. This is up to you. Here's all the ingredients. You show us. I've never made sushi before. You show me how to do it. And so just providing those incidental, well, they think it's incidental, but we've done a little bit of planning around it to bring the kids together. And so it's a normal, natural environment to have all types of neurotypes working together in one room. So it's quite sweet to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine what magic can happen when you bring all these different minds together, all these different
Yeah, it's
curious
gorgeous.
college minds together, and
Yeah.
then give them an activity to do. And I can only imagine the kind of high level sushi that can be designed in that realm. Sophisticated sushi, of course.
They wanted canned tuna in it, and I was like, I can't eat that stuff."
Really?
Yeah, I tap out. I can't eat cat food, but the kids love
No.
it. Yeah,
They
the
like the
kids,
canned tuna? Really? For
they
the sushi?
love canned tuna. I've had to buy tins of canned tuna and keep it in the
That's
cupboard
so
to go in
interesting.
sushi, to go in toasties. I don't know. They just love that stuff. I can't
It's
eat
so
it.
interesting. I don't know if it's a college thing or not, but my nephew also stocked up while he was in college on these tuna cans, and he
Yeah,
would just have so many of them. And I'm like, is
yeah,
it because it's just easy to just like put there and easy access? You don't have to cook it,
maybe.
you just take it out. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe
And
it's
and
one of these new
the
college things.
noodles. I don't know about your young people, but ours love the noodles. Love the mee goreng and the packaged noodles. They love that. I go through
Well,
so
the
many
noodles,
packets of that.
yeah. Well, the noodles package and also the soup, the
Yes,
ramen
the
soup.
soup ones.
They like that
Ramen, yeah,
also
I
prepackaged.
love it.
Yeah, all those things that are probably so healthy for you, because they've been sitting on the
Yuck.
shelves only for a couple days, right? But yeah, so I mean, it sounds like, you're providing a lot of social emotional supports from a trauma-informed lens under this inclusive umbrella for these college students. And again, it sounds like Kiara is a model for many other places in Australia. Have you noted just from your own lens, any differences amongst different places in Australia for those listening? Because many are not from Australia, and Australia is a very large place. I remember I was there, and it would take me months to conquer that whole country. But are there different places where different things are being done?
I guess part of setting up this program was about visiting some of the other SLPs that were already established. And we're all quite unique in that we cater to our context. And so all of them are a little bit different in the way that we do things. And yeah, some of them are doing a lot around programming and coding. So I guess looking at the special interests of your group and meeting their needs. I've also got a bit of a digital tech background. So I was really excited because I thought, I'll get to do some programming with the kids and Minecraft and Roblox and everything. But then I
Yeah, they
get to
love
the
that.
school and my kids are not interested though.
Mm,
They, as I said, they're mostly foodies or art,
right.
and so I've have to adjust and adapt to meet their needs. So every school's context is a little bit different, and how we've set up the programs. I'm not so familiar with what's happening everywhere. I know a bit, but not everywhere, and I know that this is a public education system. I think the private and independent systems have their own way of doing things.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's a beast of its own, the public versus the private, but it's fantastic that this is public, that this is
yeah.
offered
It is. Yeah,
and
that's the
it's
thing.
funded, fully funded, so anybody can go there, which is, I guess, circling back to the beginning, part of the reason why you were drawn to this
Yeah,
is you had mentioned that you had seen so many disadvantaged people just falling through the cracks just because they didn't have access. So it's fantastic that this is also free. I mean,
yeah,
because this kind of program where I come from is not free.
yeah.
It
Right.
costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe there are systems in place internally that allow for these programs to be designed and be funded and all those things. Just as a follow up to speaking about our neurodivergent teens and tweens and before they get to college. And if I had a penny for every time a parent said to me, they ended up in college, but things just didn't work out. They couldn't regulate themselves and they ended up back home. And a lot of it was related to the transition process, which was that they weren't really very much prepared for what was to come. And it seems like we have to start prepping our tweens, our teens, our young adults as early as freshman year, really, in high school,
Yeah.
and kind of show them what's going to be coming next. So I'm curious where from your lens in so many of the things that you've done and now looking at the students at our college, like what do you think is the most important in that transition process so that when the students come, they can feel like they are calm, they are regulated, and they don't have to feel like this transition is so enormous that they can't cope.
I think we run a couple of orientation days. So just I've got I think 5 year 7s, 5 kids starting into high school this year, and so really ran a few days where we let the parents come in just with the kids and have a look around the setting. No other students at the school, so really like graduated transition progress process. And then they came in as a small group for a couple of hours. Then we looked at like a bit longer. So we did about 4 of them and moving towards a full day at school without mum or dad, just in their small group, alongside the mainstream group as well. And just taking them through a normal day, walking them through, seeing what to expect. And that seems to have worked really well, getting them to meet the staff so they're familiar with the staff from the school and meeting each other. But I guess more broadly speaking, we do run what we call an SLP curriculum. So 5 times a week, the kids come out of mainstream classes to work with us, with our staff on a social emotional type curriculum. And again, it's co-designed by the students. So definitely about halfway towards the year, we had a few grumbles from the kids saying, "Oh, we don't really like these lessons. We're sick of learning about emotions. Sick of watching that shows it inside out. What's
That
the one with the
rubbish
little the
emotions.
little
Yeah.
yeah, they're like, "Who needs emotions?" And I was like, "You know what? Fair enough. What do you want to learn then?" So here's a bit of a framework around this is the curriculum that we're supposed to teach. How do we do this? And so they come up with some great ideas, especially some of our older kids are quite clever. They're academic extension students. So we give them a list of topics and things like metacognition. So they wanted to learn about thinking and I just can't even think now. Some of the things, one of the kids was like, oh, I want to learn more about philosophy. So just really bringing them in and trying to prepare them for the big wide world and life after school, but on their level too and what they want to learn. So maybe weaving in a few things that we want them to learn as well along the way, but just bringing them in, getting them to help us design these curriculum and these lessons to help them and skill build to prepare them for the big wide world.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just so amazing how the students are so involved in the co-designing of the curriculum. It just speaks to how you guys were catering to their strengths and interests, but also allowing the autonomy so that they can actually speak up and advocate for what they really need and what they really want, which is our goal when we're working with the neurodivergent individuals, especially the autistic individuals who a lot of times don't know how to advocate. And
Yeah.
not only are you co-designing, but if something seems to bother them or maybe they're getting sick of something, you are willing to like pivot again and then redesign. Which I think a lot of times, even though a lot of neuroaffirming curriculums do pivot and co-design, a lot of times there's not the redesigning element where it's like, okay, let's start again. Let's start from scratch again.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's also probably a really important piece. Just listening to what you're saying is being as flexible as we want them to be. So
Yeah.
making sure that once, there are grievances aired, such as emotions, what's going on with that, this is annoying. Immediately now it's time to start thinking together, collaboratively again, and redesign. I feel like there's really great power in that.
I think so too. And just being reflective and I guess always modeling what we want for them as well. So we want them to be reflective and to take a step back and think, well, what could I do differently? Or how can my needs be met? What needs to happen here? So working with them to always ensure that they want that this is something that they want and that they can see is going to be helpful for them, because that's the only way we're going to succeed and have buy-in and keep our students attending school is if they want to be there and they can see the relevance, the importance, and they understand that, yeah, they have autonomy and they have a bit of voice here in what's happening.
Yeah, and those toasties, I mean, that's also
And
a
the
key to the
toasties,
heart, the
yeah.
toasties, yeah. I mean, if you have one message aside from the toasties, and just bringing it to the end full circle of this podcast episode, toasties are always good to have handy if you're in Australia, and the kid is hungry and dysregulated. But
Yeah.
if there's one message that you would wanna give to the parents of these neurodivergent individuals who are starting college or who are in transition, maybe in 7th grade or 12th grade, and really trying to think about the college experience. What message would you give these parents after working with so many of these families and seeing how it can be really challenging for them to A, separate from the child, right? Allow for the independence, but also just because there are natural nerves that come along with stepping out of the comforts of high school.
Yeah, and I probably should add in here that I'm a parent as well. You know, I've got 3 beautiful children and my youngest little man is ADHD. So I come with some lived experience and I lead with that a bit. And so when I talk with the parents, I say, hey, look, I know what you're going through. Going on this same journey and maybe you can help me. And I guess it's about having that kind and empathetic lens over everything we do and just really listening and trying to understand what we need from our kids and what the kids deserve. And I guess my biggest message to our families is we got you, we're in this together. We're on this journey together. We're going to try and find a way um, to help your child and let your child work towards and achieve their dreams, because that's what they deserve. All children deserve that. And so I guess that would be my biggest message to our families. And I hope that they hear that and feel that is, yeah, we got you.
Yeah. So for anybody listening, just know that when these programs that are set up that are designed to support your loved ones, they got you. Just
Yeah.
those 3 words, we got you, I feel like speaks volumes. And it sounds like what you're doing there at Kiara College and just the way that you're designing, redesigning, making sure that everything remains neuroaffirming, but also allowing this inclusivity where everybody's able to interact with each other and do all of these activities together. It seems like there are a lot of hungry folks over there that seem to really want to make a lot of food, but it seems like it's just such important work that I think so many people can learn from, including people who are already working in these schools. but there aren't that many like them. There aren't many institutions that are designed in this kind of way. And I think that so many of our listeners can learn so much from what you shared about how to honor the neurodivergence and how to think about things in terms of, hey, we have to acknowledge the trauma, it's ongoing trauma, and we have to bring the families into it, and we have to coach the families too. Yeah, I really feel like our listeners are going to really appreciate all the things that you shared. And it's so apparent, Maureen, how dedicated you are to this cause, to the
Thank you.
families. And like your face lights up when you just even speak about every moment that you've had with the individuals in this program. And
Yeah.
thank you so much. I know
Thank
that
you.
Perth is far away, but thanks to technology, we were able to speak, and I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you for inviting me. I'm actually quite flattered and grateful for the opportunity to talk about what we do.
Thanks for joining us on Unmasking Social, where we neurodiverse advocates and those who support them explore how real friendship begins when we start showing up as ourselves. If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, leave a review, or follow me for more conversations that provide information on neurodivergent ways of thinking, communicating, and connecting. Until next time, keep staying social.